Hello and welcome to the third episode of our Holistic Hitting Podcast. And my name is Andy Barquette. I'm going to be your host for the next few minutes or maybe half hour. I'm not sure how long we're going to be on. We'll see how it rolls. I have a special guest that's going to be jumping on tonight, former teammate of mine, Jimmy Gonzalez. Jimmy will be joining us. He's a former first-round pick, minor league manager, played and coached in professional baseball over 30 years. Jimmy and I were teammates, won a Caribbean World Series together 26 years ago and have been friends ever since. We'd played against each other in the minor leagues and then connected as teammates, and our wives became friends. And to this day, we get together and our families get together, our kids know each other. So it's a really cool relationship that baseball has built and maintained. Jimmy is a catching instructor. He does a great job of teaching that position. He has an academy and works up in the Hartford, Connecticut area. He'll catch you all up on kind of what he's doing. And we are working on actually developing a remote package for him, developed and available through Holistic Hitting. So that's something we can talk about as well as we hop on in a little while. But I want to talk about owning your process tonight. That's I'm going to be teaching to my live group on my membership and remote clients. I teach on Monday nights live at 7 p.m. And tonight I'm going to talk about owning your process and kind of what that looks like and how to do that, how to make that part of who you are as a player every day. And so we're going to talk about that tonight and how that's really critical to your development. Jimmy, just like myself, we played a long time, coached a long time, managed at different levels of the minor leagues, have seen that great players come through with super talent and then see that talent maybe evolve into something special, or sometimes see that talent kind of go down the wayside just because those players particularly did or didn't own their process. They didn't make their routine that was something that they could really build upon, both on the field, off the field, in the weight room, in the lunchroom, how you're eating, how you're sleeping. All of those routines matter, and they're all part of a player's process. I think that this younger generation or this generation thinks that I just got to play good and that's all that matters. I got to look good on social media. And there's a lot, as you know, goes behind the scenes in building that. And that's owning your process. And now everything is measured, right? Like you can't hide from the measurement anymore. So instead of like fighting the measurement and fighting this whole metrics revolution, I feel like we need to embrace it and understand it and start to prepare for it. Take care of your body better. Work on your flexibility. It's going to be measured. Your explosiveness, speed, your bat speed, exit velocity. Now, I can't stand chasing exit velo. I can't stand chasing bat speed as far as metrics go. At the end of the day, you're going to need them. And so it's better to teach you how to do it and teach you how to do it correctly than to you go just start and swinging anything you can to figure out how to have better bat speed. I think we know now through proper movement patterns. Again, I teach this to my remote clients as well as our membership people, and how to move correctly, how to move more efficiently. And so when you do that and you start moving more efficiently, then your barrel accuracy improves. And when your barrel accuracy improves, then all of a sudden, the ball starts backspinning. And when the ball starts backspinning, then from there we can take some chances and add some more within those boundaries, right? But if we just try to backspin from the jump and take big swings, that's when we kind of get a little bit out of control. So I'm not anti-bat speed. I'm not anti-exit velocity. I'm pro for both of them, but we have to learn how to do it correctly. That's the key. And again, these are things that we coach I coach in my program. Coaches that work in my program also teach. And so, and this is available through our app and so many other ways that we're able to deliver it on the Discord app that we use, and we're posting swings, and players are able to upload their swings, especially through the membership piece, and get their swings analyzed on there. So if you're interested, take advantage of our membership. It's really neat. And if you're looking for remote training and you want to work one-on-one with me, there's a program that's been proven over 2 years now that's really helping players. So just DM me, comment. There's lots of ways to get in touch with me. Instagram is great. It's a great way to connect. A couple things I want to mention real quick. Got to pay the bills, right? Official sponsor, the Power Pivot is the official sponsor of the Holistic Hitting Podcast. And so go to Power Pivot USA, use Power 15 at checkout and get yourself 15% off and free shipping at Power Pivot USA. Again, Power and the number 15, and you get 15% off and free shipping. So take advantage of that. Also, Scalfani College Recruiting is also a sponsor of the podcast. If you go to scalfanicollegerecruiting.com, check out their website, company that's newly launching. But the owner has been in business and has been doing this for 30 years and has an amazing record of placing players in college. So if you're looking for college recruiting and you're interested, again, get in contact with me. I can get you a coupon code and we can get you set up with Sclafani College Recruiting. So again, back to owning your process. My process is I need a sip of water. So when it comes to elite players, it was really neat to be a part again of the 2018, World Series champion Boston Red Sox, and that team had an elite process, and I think that's what Alex Cora was so good at in bringing in the coaching staff and with the players that we had, and making sure that we set processes in place, whether that be in advanced scouting, hitters meetings, pitchers meetings, that our preparation was over the top excellent, and it really was. We had championship preparation in all facets of the game, in the way that we took ground balls, and the way we took batting practice, and the way we prepared in the cage, and in meetings, and everything. Everybody was at a high level. Everybody's signal was very high, and the distractions were, for the most part, low. And that's what allows you to have that type of mindset. So we were able to have that and maintain that. And how do you do that? One day at a time, by taking care of your job. And my job as the assistant hitting coach was to flip the ball and to prepare the players and to make sure the players feel comfortable and confident when they walk out of the cage based upon the game plan and the work that they did. And so, you had to make sure and connect and communicate well with those guys and find out what's going on in their lives and get them to open up to you so they can feel comfortable to do what they want to do. And so, it was awesome to own just my process. And then you saw Tim Hires, who was my partner, the number one hitting coach, and see him talking about swings and matching them up with the planes of the pitch and the preparation that he did in the video, so he could bring that to the players. And the third base coach, Carlos Fablis, watching everybody's arm. He knew how everybody would throw, so who to send, not to send, who could run, whose hammies were tight. Like we were prepared all around. We knew everything that was going on with our team, and we knew everything that was going on with the other team. And that's what helped us win games, was that championship level of preparation. And again, how do you do that? One player at a time. Take care of your process. Own your job, basically, on your team. And, right now, as we're in January and we're still preparing professional players, the bell's about to ring. College players, again, the games are about to ring. You guys are practicing. High school players, same thing. Nobody up north, everybody's freezing right now, but anybody down south that's listening to this is getting ready for baseball, right? So, right now, the anticipation of that's super cool, but what do you have to do? Own your process. You got to make sure and get your work done every day. You got to make sure and kill what you need to get done, and make sure that your day is structured, that your life is structured, because it's really hard to make it in the big leagues now. Only 20 draft picks. There's only 4 teams. There used to be 7 teams, 50 rounds. Now there's 20 rounds. That's it. Right, and so and then every year there's another 20, and then they got to release guys, and as they sign them, and there's a limit of players. It's a lot different than it used to be. They used to just there's a big funnel of players, and they throw a big, huge funnel of players in professional baseball, and then they would just funnel their way to the big leagues. Now the beginning funnel is a lot tighter, and it just goes very narrow. And so you got to get in that funnel, and you better make sure you're moving this way, because if not, you'll get spit out because there's another group coming in. So with it being harder and more competitive, and especially now in college recruiting. Now, in college recruiting, they're using, metrics through True Media and different types of programs to evaluate and filter out who swings and misses, who makes hard contact, who throws over 95, who hits over 95. You name it, they got it, right? And they're figuring out, they're looking at track records, and then they're going to recruit players off of that. And so, the metrics are real. You got to understand the metrics and play to the metrics as well. But yet, when the game's being played, you got to play the game, right? There's no, we're not thinking about my contact rate when I'm, 3-1 count. I'm trying to look on a heater and trying to bust it somewhere. But my point is instead of, it's kind of like the IRS. Instead of making the IRS your enemy, you got to make the IRS your friend. You got to work with the IRS, right? So you got to make metrics in baseball and analytics your friend, so that you can understand what the industry is looking for in you, what you're trying to build in your game that needs to be improved. Figure out what that is, and then use metrics to measure it, and then start to build it and gradually improve it, right? That would be the idea, instead of just I can't stand metrics, or metrics are the most important thing in the world. We need a blend of everything. It's a human element. It's a a science element. There's a lot to it. And so we have to understand both sides and be able to manage both together to make sure that the players really understand what is going on, how they're being evaluated, and what they need to do in the 21st century to be successful. So that is kind of what the mantra is tonight to talk to Jimmy about. I can't wait to get him on here. Again, owning your process is a big part of my core mental skills program. The C stands for championship mindset. The O is ownership of process. The R is relentlessness. The E is enthusiasm. So it's a big one for me. Within my program, there's a lot of bullet points that I go and speak about when it comes to owning your process and reflecting a lot on the 2018 World Series team, because that process was just so impeccable. But anyway, again, really thankful to have Jimmy on tonight. Looking forward to getting him on here. And it's going to be great. Again, a first-round pick, Hartford, Connecticut, high school, born in Dominican Republic. That's where we played together again, won a championship together. Drafted by the Astros in the first round, 40th pick overall. And then a long playing career, up to AAA, tons of Major League spring trainings. Was a catcher, now is a great, excellent catching instructor in the Northeast. So looking forward to having Jimmy. Without further ado, here he is. All right, we're back with my buddy Jimmy Gonzalez, man. It's good to have you on, bro. Thanks for being here.
Andy, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure for sure.
Yeah, man, cool. I'm glad we're doing this. So, for those of you who don't know, like Jimmy and we've known each other long enough that I can say this, like, you're a first round draft pick, and it's a tough story because not every first rounder plays in the big leagues, right? Like, even though you got to be a part of however many major league camps and you were, you never got that call as a first round pick, you would almost thought this is going to be automatic,
Mm-hmm.
And so, but then to build a career for 30 years in the game, be able to, number one, create so many experiences, both in the United States and then internationally, which we've shared some, right? And championships and relationships and that have lasted this long, And so, like you can look at as a first rounder that doesn't make it to the big leagues as, it was a bust. You got to live this long career in the game, man, and see so many different things and experience, and then go on and be a minor league manager and impart so much information to other players. And so tonight's topic's about like ownership of process. And so I want to talk about number one, like when you started from a high school player and you went into professional baseball, what was your process like before and after? How did you have to like create a process right away? What was that like for you, that transition?
Well, first of all, it was extremely difficult coming from high school and kind of not having really a process or even a plan to what I was trying to do, and getting into pro ball and learning that. But it didn't happen right away. You're going
Right.
through the first years of, this is difficult. You're away from home. I'm struggling, like all of those things. And then beginning to learn, I need to have a plan on what I'm doing. I'm trying to execute this or that, whatever it might be, whether offensively or defensively. And that took some time. And when you're in it, you don't realize how you're learning this and you're learning this. And we've had great coaches that just kind of taught us that. They were mentors for us and really told us, I think, in general, just how to be a professional, and that's going about your business and have an idea of what you're trying to do, trying to accomplish. But it took some time for me to kind of realize that and learn that and understand that. I think by the time I met you, I had a little bit more of that,
Right.
But my first years were difficult because, you're trying to succeed, you're trying to play, you're trying to produce, and yet at the same time you're trying to learn how to be a professional and create that plan and that approach.
Yeah. So then, now most of the people listening to this are amateur players, high school players, maybe college players, and coaches that are trying to look for ways to get better and to figure out what owning a process even looks like, and just, knowing because I wasn't a catcher, and you guys live a little bit different life because you're working with the pitchers every day and you're in meetings with the pitching coach, and that's a whole nother deal that you have to prepare for, right?
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that preparation and what it took, you learned a process through a structure, a system, and you started watching what other people were doing and say, okay, I got to figure out what he's doing. I got to figure out what he's doing, and then how do I put that into my game, right? And so I think this young player has a hard time with that because there's so much noise. What to do, right? So like, what where do you go first? Like, how do you start structuring and owning your process if you're a young player or you're trying to teach a young
I
player?
think nowadays a lot of these young players have mentors, coaches, hitting coaches or whatever it might be, and hopefully that they are telling the players, look, making sure that you're doing this, have a plan on what you're trying to do. I see a lot of guys just come in and they're in the cage and they're just swinging, and ultimately that's not going to get you where you want to get to, and you have to have a plan on what you're trying to accomplish that specific day. And I would say to the players is talk to your coach, figure out a plan that works for you, and then build from that. But don't deviate from that. When we deviate from our plan, it takes us off and it just takes us longer. And I tell you that from experience, like even though I didn't really know a plan, even though I had some things, I remember kind of going off in different directions and, okay, I'll do this, or trying to make a certain adjustment that really wasn't what I should have been doing that day, kind of changing it on the fly. So I think these young players today has to figure out, what is it that I'm trying to accomplish? What is it that I want? So then I can strive and do the work that is required to get to
Yeah.
that place. Yeah.
I was speaking about a little earlier, like instead of pushing away analytics and metrics, it's like you have to use it for your benefit. Figure out how you're being evaluated or how you can develop based on hip mobility, based upon movement patterns, whatever it is, and start figuring out some things and start not playing to that necessarily, but like you almost have to buy into a lot of the ways you're being measured, or at least understand, so that you can start training accordingly. Instead of saying, "Hey, I'm not." No, man, you got to figure it out. And that's a whole other part of owning your process. Isaiah tells me, my son, who's on the second podcast episode, he'll come in the cage, before we're training. He'll say, "Dad, I just did my hip mobility or my mobility for 30 minutes." I started laughing. I'm like, when I was your age, dude, I touched my toes. That was my mobility, right? Like,
Yeah.
you did mobility for 30 minutes. Like, all right, there's my mobility. Give me the bat. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but
That's
obviously
right.
that, we joke around, but if we would have had the technology to understand the movement patterns of the body and things that we know now, you and I would have figured that stuff out, and we would have grinded on it and worked on it and tried to master it, right? But we
Yeah.
don't have that luxury. We didn't have the luxury. Now these players do. So talk about how catching. I know you have a catching program up there, and I alluded to our listeners earlier that we may have a remote one working through holistic hitting, and you and I were talking about that. We talked about how catching has evolved, man. Like, back when you were, pitchers used to pitch east to west, and it was sinker or slider, and you were on the edge, and now it's just a whole different game. Now we're teaching all different types of mechanics, and so, how have you evolved, and what are you teaching these days? What does it look like to be a young catcher in Jimmy Gonzalez's program?
I think, like you said, the technology has, from the catching perspective, has what has made that grow is the technology from the pitching. So pitchers are trying to create more sweep and certain things, more sink with more velo, so their ball is moving more. So then that evolved into, all right, let's the catchers now get into better positions to be able to manipulate those pitches or make them look a little better. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And I think having the idea of these guys, okay, I have metrics that I can use. How am I doing in this part of the zone? And we're using that to then work on that part of the zone. If a catcher is having struggles with arm side sliders, then okay, we can see that through the data and the technology. So then we're able to attack that a little bit differently. Where before, to the naked eye, it's like, okay, it looked okay, or you saw some things here and there. But when you're seeing video and seeing the data and the numbers, then you have a better idea of where the kid is, and then you're able to make adjustments. So that's how, from a defensive perspective, where the technology has really helped and allows us as coaches to kind of make adjustments with that.
Yeah, man. And then that's a great example of owning your process. Like, your process has changed. If I would have asked you that 15 years ago, how you're teaching catching when you were managing in the minor leagues, you wouldn't have answered it that way, right? And so now your
100%.
process has changed, right? Just
That's
like
right.
I got hit tracks in here, and we got a slow-mo camera and high-speed cameras, and we're measuring everything. I got the blast motion, everything in this place. And so we're able to, and then sometimes I do the best coaching when I don't even use it. You know what I mean? Like when I just don't even turn it on. So sometimes like it's too much. Sometimes it's just, we don't even need it. We need to talk baseball.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you're saying, we can acknowledge that there's issues with a player, and then say, hey, let's attack that weakness, and that's owning your process to the max, right? Like, it's just like going to the gym. Like I got pretty good biceps, my triceps are terrible. All right, we got to improve your triceps. We got to develop a plan for that, right? It's the same thing. All right, my framing arm side's no good, but so I need a plan for that, whether it be machine or flips or whatever your drill package is. So
That's right.
that's pretty cool, man. And I guess you're using that. You're able to see that now and probably see the game differently because of the technology, which is
Totally.
cool.
I think, the game has evolved. We have to evolve with it. I think having that information is great. I don't think it's all of that because, like you said, you then have to talk to the player, communicate. All right, how are we going to figure this out? And that's where the communication, the relationship comes in because we use these numbers as, okay, here's where we are. Now, what are we going to do to get better, to raise
Yeah.
that bar? And that's where I think the technology is good, but then the relationships and the coaches and the one-on-one and the face-to-face, like that is another aspect of it. Or if we could see a video and remotely and we're talking to a player and we're communicating what we're seeing, what we need to do, then we have all aspects of it coming together to ultimately get the player better, which is our goal.
Yeah. It takes a village, man. It really does. Like, it's just not one of us, like when it comes to players, you never know. That's why you go through a minor league system. It was such a beautiful thing back in the day when, you had so many, I kind of equate it to this, and it's different now. And just no disrespect to those who are coaching in professional baseball that didn't play. I realize that the game has changed, and I'm not hating on anybody. Neither is Jimmy. That we're working in the private sector or whatever, but it just used to be like this. And I was having this conversation at a party the other day, trying to explain this to some people. I said, listen, it's like the military. Like you could not lead. I was talking about managing in the minor leagues or coordinating. Back when I was a player or manager or coach, you could not lead unless you had served, right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
and that's how the system was. Like, and so those who were being led, the players, we were excited to learn from those who had served because they had been to places that we wanted to go.
That's right.
And so they would impart it back to, and that was it, was passing it on. And so it's a little different now. Obviously, it's not that way anymore. And again, no disrespect to those that just the business has changed, but that was so cool about our generation and the generations before it in baseball is that, you really learn how to be a professional. And you learned how to handle your business, and you learned how to own your process because
Yeah.
you saw the older guys doing it and the great ones doing it, right? So give me one quick example as we kind of head to the end here. I know you got some things to do, but one quick example of maybe one of your best memories from pro ball or something maybe where a process was involved that there was a difference made or a change that you made personally or saw in another.
I think the biggest one, I use this example all the time, was catching, but seeing an older guy catch. This guy had already been in the big leagues, and Alberto Castillo was the one,
Yeah.
and he was defensively like top. He was very good at what he did. And I saw him. And I saw what he was doing. This is back in 1995, and I'm just looking at him, and I see how he's winning pitches and how he's, controlling the ball. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm going to try to do what he's doing and emulate that. Now, if you were to look at us, I was probably looking nothing like him. But in my mind, my process was, I'm going to try to do this and manipulate the ball this way or try to do this with this pitch. And that took me here. And then once I was there, then I felt more confident behind the plate. It didn't matter who was throwing, what kind of movement they had on the pitches. And that just because it was all positioning, what he was doing. And again, we probably looked totally different, but that helped me. And then just that process of learning that and seeing that. And that's where I think that, like you said, the village is also other players, because you learn from other guys, seeing what they do, seeing how they approach pitches, how they approach their work. And I think that's probably I have many more examples, but that's one that I remember first and foremost because we were catching some higher level guys. And
Right.
I'm in
The
A-ball,
big arms.
Yeah, so it was harder for me. But then once I learned that, I'm like, wow. So that little bit in winter ball, like, kind of put me at another level defensively.
Yeah, Jimmy and I won a Caribbean World Series together, Dominican Championship together with the Águilas Cibeñas. What a lineup. And the guy that hit ninth was the starting catcher. Jimmy was the backup catcher. And Alberto Castillo was the number one guy. And he
Yeah.
was the best defensive catcher I ever played with. Sorry to all the other guys I played with,
Yeah.
but that guy was the best. The only
Yeah.
other one I think that was close, and you remember him, Jimmy, was Alex Delgado, who was the Venezuelan version of or Alberto, who had like 5 rings. I
Uh-huh.
played with him in Aragua, and this dude could catch, knew how to throw the fingers down, could
That's
steal
right.
pitches, veteran guy, you know.
Yeah.
And I think he's still coaching and managing in Venezuela, but great guy. But Alberto was, what energy that guy had behind the plate. Don't
Unbelievable.
freaking lean. Don't try to get funny at first base or second. He'll pick you off or third, like wherever you are. Like be ready. I remember playing first base and had to be like on point because it was you just never knew where it was coming.
Yeah.
Don't blink because you might get hit in the face.
That's right.
Yeah,
And he
man.
took
Those are,
he took pride in what he did. You
Yeah.
know, just like other guys take pride in different aspects of their game. And I think
Yeah.
that's what we got to do, and that's taking ownership of your process, kind of.
that is,
on
that
those
is,
same
man.
lines.
I mean, he knew the league so well. He knew the hitters so well, and he knew his pitchers against the hitters, and knew which pitch would work. And he would tell he saw the game differently.
Yeah. He had
You
he
catchers,
had
I'll
the
tell you,
data that we have today in his mind.
he
Like
had
the
it
lay
all
of the
here,
game.
and he had it 3
Yeah.
hitters ahead. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I remember and playing against him and hated when he was catching because I never got what I wanted to hit. You know what I mean? It was always, I'm like, gosh,
He knew what
dang
you
it,
could
man.
do. That's why.
Yeah. He just knew. He knew what to throw, when to throw it. He was really good, man.
That's right.
Well, listen, bro, it's been a pleasure talking to you. We could probably do this we could talk for an hour and we could go back
sure.
and forth. We may have to do an episode too. We have to do another one. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to keep them semi-shorts so these young kids watch them. Otherwise, if it's too long, they're not going to watch it. People are going to turn it off.
Oh yeah.
But thanks for being on, man. I appreciate it. And if anybody's interested in what Jimmy's doing and wants to connect and learn some more about a remote catching program, just DM me. I'm on Instagram. Jimmy, tell me your Instagram and all that, just so everybody
Yeah, on
knows.
Instagram we are at Gonzalez Baseball, and same thing. You could DM me there, and we could do connect and see if we're a good fit. And
Awesome.
again, it's just working to get these guys better. It's our goal.
That's it, man. It's so much fun. I know you're doing the same thing I'm doing, and it's so satisfying to see these kids get better, impact your community, and
Yeah.
young players, veteran players, everybody in between. Everybody wants to get better, from the 12-year-old to the 18-year-old. I had one the other day say, "Coach, I feel lost." 13-year-old, and then the 18-year-ld, the same comes in, "Coach, I feel lost." I'm like, unbelievable. Like the game doesn't discriminate. It kicks your butt no matter what age you are, big leaguer or adolescent. So, all right, Jimmy, big hug, bro. Good.
All
Thanks
right,
for
brother.
being
Thank
on.
you. Thanks for having me,
All right,
brother.
man. Enjoy the rest of your night, brother.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Well, I want to thank Jimmy for being on. Thank Sclafani Recruiting for being a sponsor. Thank the Power Pivot as well for being a sponsor. I love talking ownership of process. Love talking with an old friend, a baseball guy, a first-round pick, a guy who's been through everything you can in baseball and had to learn the hard way, so to speak, and has been through a lot of adversity in the game and is still now teaching it and passing it along in such a cool way. And it's he studied the game from so many different angles, and those catchers behind the plate do an amazing job seeing the game in different ways. And Jimmy's just a first-class human being, great husband, father, and mentor to many. So if anybody's interested in his catching program, DM him at Gonzalez Baseball or DM me as well and ask about it. We'll be happy to point you in the right direction. Thank you for listening to episode 3 of the Holistic Hitting Podcast. We look forward to filming and producing the next one, and we'll see you soon.